Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about something very important in science, that is energy. Brethren, this studies is grouped into part 1 and part 2. So after watching the part 1, please go ahead and watch the part 2 in the next studies. Thank you so much so you can gain more knowledge and understanding in what energy in motion is all about. Thank you very much. So today we'll be studying, as I said earlier, on one of science important topic, energy. Energy is the reason things move, is the reason things fall, is the reason we spin, we roll, and even why you can run, you can jump, and even you can play. So even when you are sitting quietly, energy is still working inside the body. And in this lesson, we are focusing on energy in motion, understanding potential and kinetic energy. So we are going to look at the two main types of energy: potential energy, which is stored energy, and then kinetic energy, which is energy of motion. And by the end of this lesson, you will be able to explain energy using real life examples like the roller coasters, the bicycles, the swings, and even food. So get ready, stay focused, and let's begin. Brethren, this topic tells us that energy is not just something we talk about in books. It is always moving, it is always changing, and it is always walking or working around us. Energy can be stored and energy can move. And understanding this help us explain how things work in real life. So before we start, let us be clear about what today's lesson will help you learn. These points guide our understanding and help us know what to focus on. The first thing we're going to look at is to be able to define energy. Of course, you should be able to understand potential kinetic energy and how energy changes occurs in these two forms of energy. So what then is energy? Energy is the ability to do work, and it exists in various forms. Energies cause changes around us. So if something can move an object, if something can heat something, and to even light something, then we know probably that energy is involved. So energy exists in many forms, such as light energy, heat energy, sound energy. You can have electrical energy, you can have chemical energy, and even mechanical energy. So today we are focusing on mechanical energy, which includes both the potential energy and then the kinetic energy. All right. So what then is potential energy? We know potential energy is energy stored, okay? Energy that is stored, which means the energy is there, but it is not being used yet. And we can get this type of energy depending on some key factors of that particular object. So an object has a potential energy because of its position, because of its height, and because of its condition. Even though the object is not moving, it has energy waiting to be used. So we will dive into that details as we proceed with the lesson. So let's look at what kinetic energy is. Kinetic energy basically is the energy an object has because it is moving. So we say moving object possesses energy due to motion. So in kinetic energy, If something is moving, if something is rolling, falling, running, spinning, then it has kinetic energy. And the faster it moves, the more kinetic energy it has. All right, so another term and very important thing we should understand is energy changes. You know, it may change or it changes from potential to kinetic energy and back again. Energy is not fixed. It constantly changes from one form to another. And stored energy can change into motion energy. In other words, potential energy, which is a stored energy, can change into kinetic energy, which is the moving or motion energy. And motion energy can also change back into stored energy. This change happens all around us every blessed day. So let's zoom in to look at the very details of this lesson. What then is energy? Energy is the ability to do work or cause change. It is all around us, in the food we eat, the wind that blows, and the sun that shines. So energy is what makes movement possible. Without energy, nothing will move, grow, or even change. So when you eat food, your body gets energy. When the wind blows, it moves objects. When the sun shines, it provides heat and light to mankind. In our various homes, it does that. And these are all examples showing that energy is everywhere. But brethren, we cannot see energy directly, but we can see what it does. We can see the moving cars, the lighting homes, the warming of our hands, and all this tells us the work that energy does in our daily lives. We don't see energy itself, but we see its effect. So when a car is moving, it shows energy in motion. When a light bulb is glowing, it shows electrical energy, which then change into light energy. And one thing we should understand is that energy is neither created nor destroyed. So energy is never lost in any circumstances. Rather, it changes from one form to another. And this is what we call the law of conservation of energy. We state that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but it changes from one form or transferred from one object to another. So it changes form from one form to another, but it's neither created nor destroyed. And this law tells us that everything or energy does not disappear. It only changes form. So this law is very huge for us to understand and very important for us to understand that we cannot create energy, neither can we destroy energy. So energy is never lost in any circumstances. If you can't see energy at one point, meaning it is transformed or it has been transformed into another. So in that situation, and in many cases, energy is always present in all instances. For example, potential energy becomes kinetic energy. The chemical energy in food becomes motion or kinetic energy in our body. So you see, the food that we take from our food, the food that we take in, there is chemical energy in that food. And when taken in, it then now converted or changed into kinetic energy. And that is what we use in doing our day-to-day activities, especially in movement and in doing a lot of stuff that we engage in as far as movement or motion is concerned. So let's look at the two main types of energy. We have the potential energy, which is the stored energy. And we say that an object has potential energy because of its position, because of its height or condition. And we have examples such as a book on a shelf, a yo-yo held in your hand, water behind a dam. Remember that potential energy means the energy is stored and ready to be used. So the object does not need to be moving. So the particular time, and when you see all the examples that we stated here, a book on a shelf, a yo-yo held in the hand, water behind a dam, all these objects are not moving, but they can move if released. That means they have a stored energy ready to be used. And remember one thing, that the higher and heavier the object, the more potential energy it does or it stores. So height and mass are both very crucial when it comes to potential energy. So the higher the object and the heavier it is, the more stored or potential energy it has. So a higher object, when placed higher, or an object or a heavier object, when placed higher, has more potential energy. All right, let's move on to look at kinetic energy. So kinetic energy is the energy of motion. And when something moves, anything, it has kinetic energy. We have examples such as a rolling ball, we have a running dog, we have wind blowing leaves. So movement equals kinetic energy. No movement means no kinetic energy. And all these examples shows objects in motion. Therefore, they have kinetic energy. And remember, the faster and heavier the object, the more kinetic energy it has. So when it comes to kinetic energy, the faster and heavier the object, the more kinetic energy it has. Now, where does we get this energy from? So these energies that we are talking about, potential energy, kinetic energy, where do we get them from? We get them from the first source as the food we eat. We know that the food we eat contains chemical energy. And when we eat this food, our bodies convert that energy into movement and heat. And this is what helps us to move, to grow, and to stay warm. So you see, we don't just eat, but we eat to get energy. And the type of energy that our food provides are numerous. We have chemical energy in there. That chemical energy would then be used by the body to help us in our activities of the day or as humans. Before you stay warm, we need it from the food. For you to move, we need it from the food. For you to grow, we need that energy from the food. So the second source where we can get our energy from is the sunlight. You know, the sun is the main source of energy on earth. And plants use sunlight to make their food through the process known as photosynthesis. And animals also get this energy by eating or feeding on this plant. So you see, sunlight is very important when it comes to energy in our body or energy use. The sunlight help the plant to what? To provide and prepare their food. And in turn, we animals also derive our daily meal from this very plant. So we can sustain the energy and we will be able to what? To work effectively and move freely in our ecosystem or in our jurisdiction. All right. So the next type of or source of energy is the batteries. We know that we have phones, we have gadgets that use batteries. These batteries are stored energy. In other words, they are potential energy, which help to power our devices. For example, our phones, our flashlights, and even our toys. So you see that batteries, they store energy and release it to power these very devices. All right. So brethren, we're going to end today's studies or the part 1 here, and then we're going to continue with the part 2 in our next video. So do well after watching this video or this part, do well to continue to watch the part 2 for the continuation of energy in motion. God bless you for joining, and it has been a pleasure to have you. Please do well to share your comments in the comment section, like this very video, subscribe to the channel, and then look forward to more interesting and informative lessons about science or in science and in math. Today, we have learned what energy is about, and we know that energy is never lost. We talk about potential energy being a stored energy, kinetic energy being energy in motion, and we also learn that energy is always changing forms around us. And we talk about the law of conservation of energy, which states that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. If you really enjoyed this lesson, as I said, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with friends who is learning science. Drop a comment below and tell me one example of potential or kinetic energy you see at home. And until next time, keep observing, keep learning, and remember, energy is always at work around you. God bless you, and see you next time. Bye bye.